Now, the ANC and its suspended Secretary General, Ace Magashule, were back in court today. Magashule is on a mission to have his suspension overturned. He was suspended in May after refusing to step aside. He's charged with fraud and corruption relating to a failed Free State asbestos project. Siphamandla Goge has more on that court case. Siphamandla, thank you for your time. What happened in court today?
More arguments that played out in court today, and those arguments are still continuing as we speak. What is currently happening is that Advocate Dalimpo, for representing ANC Secretary General, that is Ace Magashule, is responding to arguments and submissions by overturned, who was representing the ANC in this matter. There are three respondents in terms of this case. It's the President of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, the Deputy Secretary General of the governing party, Jesse Duarte, as well as the organization itself, the ANC. So overturned was arguing on behalf of the ANC and the respondents. So today's arguments centered around the issue of Ace Magashule's submission that his suspension should be declared unlawful, invalid and unconstitutional because the constitution of the ANC is not above the constitution of the country. He argues that, well, the fact that he is facing criminal charges does not mean that he is guilty. He remains innocent until proven otherwise by a competent court of law. Therefore, to be forced to step aside or to be suspended is unconstitutional. That is what he is challenging. But also another matter here, the gist of his argument is about the power and authority of who should have suspended him. He argues through his legal team that his deputy, Jesse Duarte, was not authorized to suspend him, that the National Working Committee of the ANC shouldn't have basically ordered or instructed Jesse Duarte to sign that suspension letter, arguing that at least the National Executive Committee of the ANC should have convened a special NEC meeting to deal with his matter. But of course, on the other side, the respondents came back arguing that he seems to have this misplaced presumption of innocence in this regard, because here it's not a criminal matter, it's a civil case. It's got nothing to do with criminality, whether he is charged or not. These are internal processes of the ANC. His own organization, which he entered into a private contract with, he joined voluntarily, has decided basically to suspend him, not to prefer that he is guilty or not. Let's listen to overturned arguing that point in response to Magashule's submission.
The presumption of innocence is a constitutional right, but it is a right entrenched in Section 35(3)(h). Section 35(3) is a right or a collection of rights conferred on an accused person. In other words, the Section 35(3)(h), read with its preamble, reads as follows: every accused person has a right to a fair trial, which includes the right to be presumed innocent, to remain silent, and not to testify during proceedings. So it is a right which governs the manner in which criminal prosecutions are conducted. It has nothing whatsoever to do with the conduct of disciplinary or civil litigation in any way.
So, Siphamandla, the ANC in their arguments are suggesting that Magashule had no powers to suspend the president.
That's one of the highly contested arguments and points in today's court proceedings. Remember that Ace Magashule had written a letter to suspend the organization's president, that is Cyril Ramaphosa, and then the ANC came back to argue that, well, that was retaliation. The fact that he had been suspended, he decided to suspend the president of the organization. But his lawyer here, Advocate Dalimpo, did argue a lot in that regard and stressed the point that it cannot be retaliation because Ace Magashule actually is the one who drafted and signed the letter to suspend Ramaphosa before his letter of suspension, that is Magashule's letter, was basically sent to him, before before he was suspended. So it could not have been retaliation, because he actually is the one who is authorized in terms of the ANC constitution as the Secretary General to suspend any member. Also provincial secretaries, regional secretaries and branch secretaries have got that power and authority to suspend any member. But the ANC's legal team arguing that the suspension of ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa was unlawful, was flawed, and that Ace Magashule was merely playing politics. Listen to overturned.
The proper functioning of a modern state would be considerably compromised if all administrative acts could be given effect to or ignored, depending on the view the subject takes of the validity of the act in question. No doubt it is for this reason that our law has always recognized that even an unlawful administrative act is capable of producing legally valid consequences for so long as the unlawful act is not set aside. And the Constitutional Court went on to explain in Curlin, and I quote, "The fundamental notion that official conduct is vulnerable to challenge may have legal consequences and may not be ignored until properly set aside, springs deeply from the rule of law." So it's a principle that says the exercise of public power must, in the public interest, be regarded as good and obeyed until it is set aside. It doesn't apply to disciplinary steps taken by a private body under contract. So that attempt to, we submit with respect, is unfounded. The President's suspension was both dishonest and unlawful.
Do we know when we can expect judgment?
Not yet, but the assumption is that, as it seems, that proceedings will wrap up shortly. Now that Advocate Dalimpofu is responding to the respondents' arguments and submissions, then the respondents' legal team will have one more chance to respond in closing. We expect that the judges will then, of course, reserve judgment in this matter. We expect probably it will be delivered in a couple of weeks' time from now. Remember, this is a full bench of 3 judges. They need to go now and read what has been presented to them, put together that judgment, deliver that judgment. So it could take a couple of weeks, but no matter how long it takes, I can tell you for sure this matter is far from over, because both parties in this matter have actually hinted that they will exercise their rights, and legal records allows them to appeal the outcome of whatever judgment will be delivered. So no matter when that judgment is delivered, but the matter is far from over.
All right, Siphamandla Goge, thank you so much for your time.